Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Can everyone hear me? It's nice meeting you. I'm Jake Bankson, VP of AI Solutions at Striim, and happy to be presenting with you today. We're happy to have our partner up here from Google. You may notice, if you're looking on it, this is not Corey Hawkins. I don't know how he got here. No, this is Mike. Mike, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm only Corey of a weekend, so this is just me Monday to Friday. I have the pleasure of being Morrisons account director, and I'll do my very best to stand in for Corey today.
Great. Well, thank you, Mike. And the man of the hour that we're really all here to listen to is Peter Laflin, Chief Data Officer at Morrisons. Peter, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, good afternoon. Lovely to be here. I'm Peter. I'm Morrisons Chief Data Officer. Very much looking forward to talking to you about our journey with data and with Striim. I guess we've been there. We've not quite got the T-shirt, but they seem to have given me this lovely jacket. So you can thank Jake for that.
All right. Well, without further ado, I'm going to turn the time over to Peter to share their story with getting to real-time data and AI.
Okay. I hope most of you know who Morrisons are. For those of you who don't, we are a supermarket. We're based in the UK. We have about 500 what you might call big shops, and we also have about 2,000 smaller format shops that we call Morrisons Dailies. But often the thing that people don't know about Morrisons is that we sell about 60% of, 60% of the food we sell is food that we've made ourselves. So often people don't know that about Morrisons and our vertically integrated supply chain. All of that leaves a lot of data, and it's fascinating to work with. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the journey that we've been on as an organization towards being a more data-centric organization, and how that gives us a fantastic platform for agentic evolution. So this is, I hope you were expecting a few AI-generated photos in a presentation, but this is an image that represents the journey that I've been on and the business has been on. You can see there that I'm walking along past a swamp of spreadsheets, for those of you who have got eagle eyes. There's a dam of data at the top and it's overflowing. And this really represents the business that I joined 6 years ago, where I came to Morrisons as data scientist number one, and I was tasked with providing the business with some value from the data that we had. And I had a very small team, and we did some really interesting work. It was really important in those early days to make sure that we did something that had value quickly, because often you will hear a lot of people ask, where is the value in the work that data scientists or data engineers do? And so it's really important not just to talk about it, but to deliver some value really quickly. So myself and the small team that I had, we were really keen to get stuck into a really important project that not only would showcase our ability to use the data for something useful, but also to create lasting value for both our customers, but also for the business as a whole. So here we are. This is, it's not me, clearly, because it's not. One of the first projects that we did was looking at ranging. So what products a supermarket sells is probably one of the most important questions that we can ask. So should we stock 10 sausages? Should we stock 20 packs of bacon? Really interesting questions that have to be driven by data. It's a fascinating area, and actually, on a different day, on a different occasion, we could spend a really interesting hour talking about all of the science that goes into making ranging decisions in a supermarket. But fundamentally, it's about understanding the products that people buy together, looking at the patterns, and then trying to work out whether we've got all of the products that customers want and need, and then trying to look at the gaps that we might have in our product catalog. So we did this. We did a really interesting process, and we took a small store near Bradford, and we went through an exercise of doing a range rationalization. And in the end, we took out quite a few products, a couple of thousand products. And we did that for a number of reasons. It was to ensure that we had the best range in that shop, but it was also to help us improve some of the operational processes, because those of you who are retailers or those of you who've worked in a shop will know that one of the big complexities that we have when running a supermarket is that when you've got a lot of products, colleagues can take a lot of time trying to work out where they go on the shelves. And we'll talk a bit more about that later on. Now, this isn't a talk, it's not a story about that range rationalization work in itself. It was a really good project that we were able to clearly demonstrate a return on investment from the work that myself and a small team of people did. Now, when I tell this story, the bit that people sometimes find interesting, sometimes feel a little bit, is a bit shocking, is that we had one person on that project whose job was simply to extract data from an Oracle on-premise database, put it into a CSV, and upload it to the Google Cloud environment where we were doing the ranging science. That was one person's full-time job to basically run a query, extract it, and put it into the cloud. Now, you might say to me, why would we need to do that? And the simple answer was that the data was in the wrong place for us to build proper data science-driven pipelines that would enable the business in real time. And so we delivered a successful ranging project in one shop. But when the business asked me if I could scale it, the answer was no. And the reason I couldn't scale that really successful project was we didn't have the right data in the right place at the right time. And so me being me, was that a failure? Was that a problem? Or did we turn that into an opportunity? And we embarked on a wholesale data transformation project simply so that I could say yes to the next time we were asked a question like that. So the problem that we were facing was that we had the capability. We had a cloud platform that would enable us to do some clever things, but the data was locked in the basement of our head office, and it could not be connected at all to the cloud environment. Now, that was for very, very good reasons, and that was because of security and some other operational performance considerations on the database. So as I say, we embarked in a transformation project, and we worked with Striim, we worked with Google, to take a copy of our operational data platform and put it into the cloud. Now, some of you may have been listening to a session that I was doing with the Google team earlier today, where we talked about agents, and we talked about our ability to prepare and develop agents for the future. And I talked a little bit at that talk around, was it luck or was it good planning? Because going through the process that we did, we now find ourselves in a brilliant place where we are moving to a world where we have data products at scale in the cloud that enable us to be data-centric. Now, you might say to me, what does this data centricity mean? Now, I'm sure you've all heard the term. You may even be working with it without necessarily thinking about it. One of the problems that we inherit as data professionals, especially if we've inherited legacy platforms over time, is that we might have multiple applications that all do a fantastic job in their swim lane, in their silo. And over time, they do a brilliant job, as I say, but it becomes very difficult to start to interact with those applications to use them in a complex system. Okay, so picture the world that we live in. In Morrisons, we sell great fresh food, but we do a lot of work to just move boxes around. Some people ask me what the business of our business is, and often I reply to say, we move boxes, because it's about getting the product in the right place at the right time. Now, we have a number of different applications that help us move those boxes into the right place at the right time. Now, if you think about a world with agents, we might want a supply chain agent that is able to influence all of the interactions that are happening along that vertically integrated supply chain, right from the field where we grow our carrots all the way through to our shops where that amazing fresh produce is on sale for customers. But when you've got applications that are all using their own logic that has been developed in good faith, does a great job, but may not be exactly in sync with another application, you end up with a problem. You certainly end up with a problem when it comes to building agents. And so we've been on our journey to move the data to the cloud, but at the same time, we've been building data products. And as I said earlier, made a little bit of a glib remark, maybe. Was it luck? Was it judgment? But we find ourselves in a place where we now have the data in the right place, in the right form, at the right time, in order for us to do a lot of real-time analytics. But we actually find ourselves in a world now where that data is perfectly formed for us to bring the agents on top of it. And it's interesting that I've been telling this story over the last 12 months. It's a really interesting story around IT transformation, around change in a large organization. And it started off as a legacy transformation. It started off as a story where we were talking about just how hard it was to break the legacy silos. And it's really interesting in the course of a year how that story, the facts have not changed. The work that myself and my team have done has not changed. But the narrative has evolved over the last 12 months, and we find ourselves in a place where this is now a story about preparing ourselves really well for the next revolution, which is the agentic revolution. So just to summarize some of the things I've been saying there, we had a large number of disparate data sets that were set across a range of Oracle systems. And it was difficult to pull that data into one place for reporting, let alone for use in those agentic systems that we are trying to move to. And so we've moved all the data to the cloud, we've solved all these problems, and we are now in a brilliant place. Now, I'm going to come back to this slide in a second. The point I would like to make is in doing all of this, in giving us a foundation for the future, which is not just a buzzword, but the future will be agentic. In giving ourselves the foundation to do that, there are some key technologies that we would not have got to the place we are today without. And so this is not, I'm not here to sell Striim, although they did give me a jacket, which is, lovely, but maybe not quite my style. I don't know if any of you have seen another talk I've done, but maybe it's not my usual look, I don't know. But the Striim technology is a key enabler of the platform that we have built, because what it enables us to do is replicate terabytes of data in real time in such a way that it is now available in the right place at the right time. So if I was to sort of leave you with any sort of, grand observations over the last 3 or 4 years of work, it's that the data is even more important today than it was a year ago, than it was 2 years ago, because the foundations of all these autonomous agentic systems are only solid if the data is in the right place at the right time. Now, I've not talked about quality. Quality is equally as important, but you've got to have that product mindset where we are really clear that we are publishing data products that can power capabilities that enable our business to function. And the final thing I'll say is that actually the really interesting evolution of some of this technology is that the data quality can now be done in that stream as the data is flowing. But maybe I'll leave that for another day and for another talk. So the journey that we've been on with Striim and Google Cloud has effectively delivered real-time visibility of the data that describes our supply chain, that describes how our business is operating. And that feels to me like a brilliant foundation to build the next evolution of our technology, data and analytics strategy, which is how do we embed those agents to drive us towards even better customer service. So I think at this point, I hand over to Jake. So thank you for listening, and hopefully Jake will share some amazing insights about the platform.
Thank you, Peter. That jacket really looks good on you. We expect you to be in that a lot. Well, thank you, everyone. So just to start out, Striim, it is spelled S-T-R-I-I-M, and that wasn't on accident. We do know how to spell. The two I's are important for our company because not only are we a data integration company, we're all about moving data from point A to point B, but along the way, that gives an opportunity for our customers to do something while they're doing that, and that is first I, intelligent. The second I is integration. So something that we see a lot is customers will have lots of data sources, and usually they're trying to liberate that data in some way to bring it together to a more modern data architecture, like our partners here at Google offer, in lots of different form factors. While they're moving that data, there's lots of opportunities to do things like transform, clean. You can create event-driven architectures, opportunities to be able to get additional value out of your data while it's moving before it even arrives within your targets. So what we actually see, what Peter was talking about today, is a pretty common pattern that we see from a lot of our customers. Usually when we first meet with a customer, they're saying, hey, we just have this data in this legacy format somewhere, possibly on-prem or somewhere else, and we just want to get to the cloud. We know we want to do some AI stuff. We know that that's going to happen in the cloud. We want to use the elasticity. And so we want to do some type of cloud migration and adoption. That's usually what we call like a stage one customer. Usually kind of when we met Peter, was a little bit of that, but as well a recognition of a desire to create a modern data platform. So they start thinking about, we want to unify our data in some way. They're using terms like data lake, lakehouse, data warehouse, fabric mesh, whatever you want to call it. It's all about data unification so you can drive further insights. You have data in disparate data silos, and unifying it allows you to do something further with that. So with Striim, we allow customers to do that. We're very good at moving data at one time, but really a lot of the value we bring is moving streaming data. So we can do change data capture out of your operational data stores. This allows you to keep an updated real-time copy of your data in the cloud, as well as maintaining that operational data store that remains untouched. And we can do that in a very low-touch manner. Once customers start doing that, oftentimes they realize we're moving this data. There are some real-time use cases. They start doing usually downstream analytics, is what we call it, within their data lake, lakehouse, warehouse, where they've got they bring the data together. They're doing some type of transformation, some feature engineering, and then they get some insights from that. But usually there's some type of delay involved in doing it within the downstream data source. And so they start looking at, can we actually move this into doing real-time analytics? And that's really where Striim shines. So we have an in-memory processing engine. We make it very equal to write SQL directly within Striim. We also provide out-of-the-box agents as ourselves. It's 2025, so I have to say agents within our product to make sure that we're up to date. But we basically observe what our customers do, some common use cases that they have, and then we build a productized version of that agent. So you can do out-of-the-box anomaly detection, vectorization, PII detection, and you can actually mask or block that data from going through, all within the real-time pipeline. Now, lastly, what we see customers now starting to talk about is agentic AI. Not only the agents that we're building into Striim, but the agentic use cases that they're trying to build themselves. And this is where one of our most key observations has come from recently, is that customers are trying to build these agentic systems, and agents need context. The only way for them to be successful is them to have the correct context at the right time. There was a recent study published by the MIT NANDA group called The State of Enterprise AI. You probably read it. It went all around LinkedIn because everyone wanted to grab a little blurb from it. It said 5% of generative AI projects have succeeded, 95% have failed within the enterprise. Now that's a little bit of a cherry-picked stat. If you actually read that entire article, what it talks about is that 5% of task-specific generative AI projects have been successful. Actually, 40% of just general generative AI projects have been successful. So what it's identifying is they call this generative AI gap. So there's this general chat GPT internal that you can build, like with retrieval augmented generation and those types of things. But then there's this task-specific agentic AI that everyone's starting to try and build. And the reasons why that hasn't been successful, they point out a few things. One, usually it's hard to have memory. It's hard to build trust in these systems for customers. If they get burned by something one time, they'll stop using it. And one thing that comes up again and again is accurate context for the models. At the end of the day, we all have access to the same large language models. AI has really been democratized, but the ability to add the context of your operational data to those systems is really where you generate differentiated value for your company. So this is where we see, everyone's talking about MCP right now, exposing tools to agents, making it very easy to do that. But these agents need real-time data, real-time copies of your operational data. And that's where what we call MCP Agent Link comes into play. So with Striim, customers like Morrisons and others that are forward-thinking how we can supply these agents with real-time data is a great place for Striim to be in a lot of ways that people are thinking about their data now. If we can expose the data from these operational systems into safe read-only server farms, then we can enable the next generation of agentic use cases. Because agents, we can't have them reading directly from the operational system. They are non-deterministic, meaning that we don't know really how they're going to act. You can build in reflection like you should within a system so it can think about what it's done and actually go back and write another query. All those kinds of things are anti-patterns for an operational system. Your operational data teams are going to say, no, you cannot connect to our operational database if you don't know how this thing's going to act. But if you can have data in a safe zone, then your agents can start to build kind of the next generation of use cases. We can allow them to act in non-deterministic ways and actually encourage that because they can find new ways to be able to solve their problems. This is something we're seeing our most advanced customers are starting to look at and really happy with partnering with people like Google on. So I just want to turn the time over now to Mike to share a little bit of his insights from Google.
Thank you. So I'm sincerely hoping I can do a good enough job to get a jacket. That apparently is the challenge for the day. As I said, I'm not Corey, but there are certain points Corey wanted to get across, so I am going to occasionally refer to my notes. But in simple terms, you've heard the story of Morrisons, this incredible transformation using Striim, using Google. But what I want to talk about is the actual platform itself, and our goal is simple. How do we take dashboards that simply inform humans to agents where we can sense and develop and drive real business value from autonomous processes? Simple as that, and that's our goal. So I'd like you to think of the platform really in these three pieces. The agents themselves, well, that's pretty simple. This is the application of AI. Our AI and ML platform, this for us is Vertex. Vertex is all about building, deploying, and scaling an AI and ML architecture. From an analytics viewpoint, this is really where all the magic happens that Peter talked about. This is about providing an open platform that allows for data ingestion, storage, also creation, but more importantly, ensuring, as Peter commented, that data is in the right place at the right time, in the right structure, and it's performant. Ultimately, that's what we need to do. And when we talk about an AI-ready infrastructure, this is built on Google. Yep. So this is using our enterprise-wide, very robust infrastructure. Could be TPUs, GPUs, any of these pieces. And then finally, you need a secure foundation. This stuff is, the greatest respect. There's enough issues out there in the market today where people have got security problems. This is about us providing you the most robust, enterprise-ready, secure platform there is to run what will be absolutely key business functions. These will be the areas where you will drive real value, make real cost savings, and really transform a business. So from a tooling and deployment point of view, and this is where I really do need Corey, as any of my customers in the audience will talk about, you've got the models themselves. So these could be Gemini models. Yep, they could be the latest Gemini models, but they could be a developer choice. Yep, you could be using a 3P model. You could be using Claude. Yep, or any of these models. And think about, from a Google point of view, we are driving a lot of the standards around how these agents are going to talk to each other. Because ultimately, yes, we would love you to just use Google agents and just drive on Google. But there will always be more than one agent. Yep. Then there is the developer kit itself. Yep. So we have the agent developer kit, which is really our tools to drive the use of the model and the orchestration of the model. But our agent engine is all about enabling you to bring in new models, new learnings, and third-party models onto the platform. And if you can build those, you need to monitor them. You need to be able to run them in sessions. You clearly need to be able to keep these things. And then it's back to security, identity. How on earth am I going to scale these? And then finally, Agent Garden, which for us is a fully managed runtime environment. The whole point here is giving you the most integrated, capable, easy to use, secure stack that we can. And then let's start thinking about these tools, the data for agents, things like context. We have we already have hundreds of connectors. There will be thousands of connectors out there. You have to have a way to manage them. You have to have a way to manage them in a cohesive way, in a secure way, and in a way that's going to drive ultimately business value. And that's absolutely key here. We also have Customer Engagement Suite, which sits underneath this, which really drives that whole portfolio. Okay. So think about, for us, agent space itself, and just as Jake said, I have to mention agent at least 15 times in every presentation, the designer, and then the engagement suite itself, which is really the end point where your customers are going to derive value from this. How am I doing time-wise? Right. Okay. So, in a really simple format, this is how we see you developing these. You start with the prompt, you build the retrieval. At this point, you're going to be not just retrieving Google information, you're going to be pulling in models from elsewhere, models you will have built, models your third parties will have built, ServiceNow or Salesforce, etc., where you bring them onto that platform. What you then need is to develop that into a cohesive set of actions. This is where your process layer comes from, and once you've driven that process layer, you've got to automate it and look at these various loops, which ultimately are just about providing a contiguous process that ends up with ultimately a business value driven from data that is real, accurate, and can be performed upon. Where we see the future is very much these multi-agent systems. If you think an obvious one is supply chain, you can see in the future a supply chain driven by agents, talking to agents, talking to agents. And that is where you're going to drive the value. That is where you're going to drive the savings. And ultimately, that's how you are going to transform the business. And we see that right out to things like Salesforce, SAP. All of the major vendors are looking to drive agents that we can call and that you can call to drive business value across the enterprise. Don't think about this as just providing content to some sort of knowledge worker who's just going to use that to drive that one process. Think about this in terms of what could I do if I could bring Salesforce, ServiceNow, all these various pieces together into one autonomous, contiguous process that ultimately does not need a human to drive it, but needs a human in the loop. So, our objective is really simple. We want to drive the most impactful agentic solution we can that allows you to build capability that will drive the business. So you've kind of heard from me in terms of where Google sees this and where we want to position ourselves. I guess, Peter, it's kind of over to you in terms of what's next.
I think just to wrap up very quickly, everything that Mike has said and Jake has talked about, do not underestimate the challenge of getting to that agentic future, because it is reliant on having your data really well tamed, really high quality, really well thought through, because it won't work otherwise. And so, as much as the technology is there to enable, you can only build things like our product finder. So here is an example of an agent. It's in our More Card app. It helps customers find products on the shelves in our store. And what it's doing is it's querying a number of our data sets as a customer to find out where that product is and how to find it in the store. We can only deliver that because of how we've built those data products behind the scenes, so that the agent has half a chance of knowing where the data is and how to interact with it in order to answer those sensible questions that the customer is asking of us. And I can't stress enough that in order to get there, in order to ship these kind of agentic products, you have to have the good data, all of the data flowing around in real time seamlessly with no friction, and you have to have an amazing platform that enables you to bring all of that technology into one place so that we don't have to worry about lots of other integrations that would have been much harder before the advent of cloud computing. I'm desperate for that to tick down to 2 seconds, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.